I think we've only got time for one more question. I mention that because we're going to go right up to the top, but you understand it's the last question. There's an incredible amount of pressure on you right now. Like an incredible amount.
I just wanted to say that I'm a really big fan of Tremaine. I'm really excited for the final season next month. So thank you.
You now join my mother and my cousins and about 340 musicians in New Orleans.
But yeah, no, I was wondering, you were talking about how Marx is a terrible clinician, and you also said that the idea of, well, the proverbial brick as a way of fixing some of the social inequality. How do you deal with the middle section between some sort of revolution? I mean, the guy who shut up LAX is probably, if he's shooting at the TSAs, probably has lots of problems with government, that kind of thing. So how do you have, those are probably going to be your people who are throwing the bricks. How do you stop those people from being in control of a new governmental system, and how do you...
I know what you're saying. I would answer it this way. The people who throw the bricks are never in control. You know, and when I say the brick, what I'm speaking of, let's go back to a fundamental moment in the 1960s, 1967, 1968. America was still incredibly resistant to civil rights, although things were changing painfully in the South, but where it wasn't changing was the idea of economic opportunity extending into these disadvantaged communities. There was still an incredible amount of poverty in the inner city. And summers in America in the mid-60s, from the Watts riot to Detroit, and ultimately culminating in the massive riots after the death of Dr. King, the long hot summer was a very real thing, and people were scared shitless. The government was scared that the Kerner Commission report in '67 said we could lose cities. This could become army of occupation shit in America. And when '68 finally happened, nothing on the ground in those areas that burned, and I was a resident of a city that was burned. The whole Northwest Corridor went up in flames. Nothing good happened on the ground. People died, a lot of property was lost, a lot of tragedy. But something did happen politically in the country, which is capital yielded in some fundamental ways. Suddenly there was an urban policy. Suddenly things like UDAG grants and community block grants became a second language for American government. And if you know anything about the origins of the black middle class in my country, it comes with government spending on the cities. Not merely because the programming was aimed at reducing the underclass and re-engaging the underclass, but because they hired a bunch of people from these communities to be part of the programming. And that was the origins of a very wide and significant black middle class that continued to grow over the next 20, 25 years. And that, George Palcano says he can remember after the riots, his father had a diner down in DC. He can remember people walking around, African Americans walking around with a lot more pride. Because of the riot and what happened in the riot, no, but because what the riot said, which was, you can't go down this road forever without us rebelling, without us saying we're not going to be second-class citizens, we're not going to be ignored, we're not going to have our leaders killed, we're not going to be marginalized anymore. And that happened. The brick itself, it's not like the people who threw the bricks acquired any personal power or were able to overturn the government. It's that they finally got somebody's attention. And when enough people are out of work and enough people have been, every time the economy shrugs, it throws off people, white, black, brown, and it throws off more people out of one America into the other. And when that group starts to become untenable for the rest of America to ignore, that's when you start getting programming. Things happen out of fear. that if we don't address this, it's going to get worse. And right now, the sense of what's at stake, I don't think there's a politician in America that's fully cognizant of it. So that's what I mean by the brick. When the bricks got thrown in 67, 68, it transformed our way of looking at the cities, and it made us behave differently as a society. So it's certainly the cruelest way to affect change, and it's certainly appallingly brutal, and it certainly means that innocent people get hurt. And I'm not advocating for it, but I am acknowledging that sometimes it's in those moments where you demonstrate, the Haymarket riot, which was basically the beginning of American labor in the 1880s. People were at a less than subsistence wage in Chicago. The lumber workers, the Pullman workers, they were making less than what they needed to survive. And so it came to the point of somebody throwing a bomb. But at that point, the martyrdom of those people on May Day, the martyrdom of the people they hung, whether they had anything to do with throwing the bomb or not, that moment created a dynamic where the thing they were fighting for in the Pullman strike and the Haymarket that followed, which was the 5-day work week, 40-hour work week, became inevitable. They scared the hell out of the people in Chicago, and they scared the hell out of the country. And somebody stepped in and said, you know what? We better give a little, or it's going to get worse. So that's what I